Hello everyone, welcome to my KSP tutorial series. For this second episode I will explain you how to maneuver your fresh new rockets into the air, into space, and also teaching you quickly how to go into orbit. So let's start this. Go on your launch pad and select a rocket that is powerful enough to go into orbit. If you are not sure, I will learn you a tip. When you are on your launching pad, you have on the bottom left your staging HUD. On each stage with an engine, you should have what's called a delta V value. That represents how much the stage will be able to change your speed, and it augments when you are into a thinner atmosphere. So to launch, I'd advise you to have around 2000 meters per second of delta V on your first stage, and around 1500 meters per second on your second stage. You just have to know that to be into low stable orbit, you need around 2300 meters per second of speed. You also have a total of delta V on the bottom, and if you have a delta V value on a stage without an engine, it's because you should lose some weight by activating this stage, like if you were dropping your empty rocket boosters. And remember, if a rocket don't solve this problem, add more rockets. And last but really not least, I strongly advise you to enable this option in this game option, you will see why later. So this time we are ready. I selected a rocket that have largely enough delta V to go into a low carbon orbit with some RCS, monopropellant, and some winglets and a large direction wheel with battery and solar panels on the command pod. You have a lot of information available, but I try to keep that simple. First, your nav ball at the bottom, it shows you the orientation of your rocket, the speed according to the ground, the orbit if you click, you have the SAS, which is the stabilization system, and the RCS to enable your RCS. And at the left, the thrust percentage, also called throttle, and at the right, the G your rocket is now enduring. You have at the top the time from the start of the mission. If you hover on this, you are able to accelerate time, but not advised during launching. And you have your altitude according to the sea level and the ground under you. At the right, some buttons like the lights one, the brakes one, and the utility one. Often it's just landing legs. Last important things, at the bottom left, click on the purple option. You will have the orbit information, that's very useful. You have the apoapsis, which is the highest point, and the periapsis, which is the lowest point. And some keyboard tips. Remember, I'm on an AZERTY keyboard. You have M to switch between map and the camera mode, V to switch camera mode, and the exponent 2 to go back into a rocket center view on the map. Before launch, it's better if I teach you the command. So it's T to activate the SAS, R for the RCS, Z and S to control the up and down, Q and D to control left and right, and A and E to control the rotation. Space is to activate the next stage, W and X to go full thrust and no thrust, and left shift and control to add or remove thrust. And if you have an issue, you can change your staging whenever you need. Now let's go, enable ACS, activate your first stage, put your thrust at max, and we are ready. So we will need to go up and then rotate to gain horizontal speed. What I do is that when my rocket is pretty stable, I wait until I am at 5 kilometers to start to rotate progressively, and I always rotate to the right, so I'm helped by the rotation of cabin. The winglets are very useful when we are in a thick atmosphere, and do not fully rotate before your apoapsis is at least 10 km above the atmosphere, which is at 70 km. So just when your apoapsis reaches 80 km. The more you are high, the less effective the winglets are, so thanks to the correction wheels to let us rotate into a thin atmosphere. When your fuel is low, prepare to eject your empty stage and start your second one, but keep your engine off. I will show you something. If you have the time, go into the map, select the highest point on your orbit and right click on it, add a maneuver node, and you will have three main options. Select the green one in the direction you are going, it should be the right one, and pull it until you have a full circle above 70 kilometers at least. Try to make the most perfect circle you can. Now you have a maneuver node, and go back into your rocket view and you will have the new info. Don't be afraid on the SIH option, just click on the top right, it's the maneuver option, and at the right you have the delta V this maneuver will use and how long it's going to be. When you will reach the maneuver node, and thanks to the grid option we enabled before, when you have to activate your engine at full thrust. The value should be at 50%, I'll explain why later. So when you reach the 0 on the timer, activate your engine until the delta V at the right is at 0. Now you should be above 70 km on all your trajectory. You are now into orbit. I will now explain you the last info you really need. So first the SCS option, you have the normal and maneuver mode, and the prograde to go into an orientation when you will gain speed, and the retrograde which is the opposite. So to slow down, go into retrograde. Then you have the normal and the anti-normal. It is used to modify the angle of your trajectory, but more about it into the mute video. You have also the radial and anti-radial, not so useful, mostly to face carbon. And the last is target and anti-target to face a target. More about it on another video. And if you want to modify, for example, your periapsis, go onto the apoapsis and accelerate to make it go higher. And slow down to put it again into the atmosphere and go back. And same for apoapsis, just go into the opposite point. Also a pretty important thing, if you don't want to fail your entire mission by doing a single mistake, you can do a quick save with F5. They are replaced each time you make one, but you can also make solid save into the escape menu and load the save here. And then why 50% on the option before? It's because to do a maneuver you put a node, but you cannot change your speed instantly at the node, so the solution is to augment your speed perfectly around the node. So 50% before and 50% after. And when you are into a maneuver node, at the bottom left you have the maneuver menu. You will have the same strange things as on the map, but you will be able to change it more precisely with this, to change the position of the maneuver node and add one orbit delay to the maneuver. You can also select someone into the crew and choose EVA option. Don't worry if you hand grab your rocket later. Your cable have a jetpack, use ZQSD to move it, and left shift and control to move it up and down. Last, before we go back on carbine, you have the RCS control. You can use them to rotate faster than just with a reaction wheel, but it costs fuel. Or you can use them to change a little the movement. You have a G and L for left and right translation, I and Q for an up and down translation, and H and N to change a bit your speed. So we are good, I think. Now you go into your apoapsis, go into retrograde, ignite your engines, so you have a periapsis into the atmosphere, like 50 kilometers, detach your last stage, activate your parachutes, and expose your heat shield. Keep you into retrograde so your heat shield protects you and you should be able to land safely. When you achieve a successful landing, put your mouse onto the altitude meter and select recover. Now you have finished your first orbital mission. Congratulations! So that's all for the maneuvers. Thank you for listening to me, and I see you in the next video, which will be focused on the spaceplane mechanics. Bye!